Chapter 19, 7 a.m. UTC-6, 2 p.m. UTC+1. A nerve-jarring clang penetrated my ears. My first thought, Koulibaly shot me! But the grocery store looked like a waiting room. A lady's voice grumbled about having to clean up not one but 2 trays of food and dishes. I began to calm. Hospital. I haven't been shot, not yet anyway. I remembered what I'd been doing 7 hours ago in that day. I'd dozed off in a visitor's lounge in Swift Current's hospital. A dropped breakfast tray woke me just before a day skip. A second upset tray had temporarily complicated both my and the hospital worker's life. I went to help clean up the dropped items. The hair-netted food services worker initially protested, but then accepted my help. You know, I told her, if this is the worst thing that happens to you today, that's not so bad. I didn't speak about my reality, which provided a larger perspective. In another 6 hours, I'll be face to face with a murderous madman. I returned to my room and found breakfast waiting. I dug in hungrily. By 7:27, the tray was empty. What now? How can I live normally in this day when in a few hours of my experience, I'll be back at that grocery store? Fate unknown, with lots of other people there too. How can I speak to Koulibaly so he doesn't kill anyone else, and maybe get his attention? I know I've faced danger before in this day skipping, but those times were different. I knew I would survive those. I don't know if I'll survive past the grocery store. I guess this is how life usually is, not knowing what will happen, I commented. I waited, pondered, fought worry, checked social media, felt pain pulsing from my lower leg. I wondered why I was half bent over with my phone in hand. Then I noticed a young boy on the floor beside me. I was in the Days Inn in Regina. Another boy, a little older than the first, plus a little girl and 2 adults, undoubtedly the parents, all gawked at me with variations of surprise and embarrassment on their faces. The older boy spoke first. "Are you okay?" The father didn't wait for an answer. "I'm so sorry. Did my son hurt you?" I straightened and offered a hand to the younger boy. He stood, looking like he knew he was in trouble. "Maybe a bruise, but," I smiled at the boys, "I think I will live." The mother prompted her sons. "Boys, what do you need to say to this man?" The boys chirped in subdued chorus. "Sorry." "Apology accepted," I replied. "And now, boys, no more running," coached the father. The family moved into the breakfast area and began organizing themselves. I, too, looked over the selections. When I sat to eat, I pulled out my phone. Oh yeah, Mom had just texted me, wondering about my mysterious social media post. I still didn't know how to answer. I watched the family, which had literally bumped into me. The kids' antics made me smile. I pictured myself one day with a family, if I survived the grocery store and Koulibaly. When I finished, the time registered as 7:34 a.m. I went back to my room and gathered my stuff. To kill some time, what a horrible expression, I flipped on the TV to a sports news program. At 7:56, rather than be caught in the middle of something new, I sat and waited to day skip. I began scrolling through some old text messages and emails on my phone, deleting them if they were no longer needed. As time ticked on, I selected a text message to delete. A window popped up inquiring, "Delete" or "Cancel." I touched Delete. When the phone's touchscreen again offered the same choice of Delete or Cancel, I naturally and quickly selected Delete. The phone chirped a single tone and displayed a discarding into garbage graphic. That was when I realized I no longer sat in my hotel room in Regina. I sat in a restaurant. The video album of my smartphone was open. My video of the Charlie Hebdo attack was gone. "Oh!" I exclaimed. "What have I done?" I lowered the phone and saw 5 women staring at me, some with confusion, some with amusement. I looked away casually as if nothing had happened. "At least I uploaded the video to the web and already passed it on to police," I consoled myself. "I guess this is why it never appeared on my phone in the chronological future." Another 10 minutes or so passed. Manon kept involving me in the conversation, let her eyes linger on me, smiled at me. 7 experienced hours ago, I'd enjoyed the flirtatious attention. But something had changed. The brief encounter with the family in the Regina Hotel 2 hours/2 days ago had refocused my motivations away from the surface and selfish. My spirit is willing, but my flesh is weak. Give me your strength." Soon the ladies' conversation entered a lull. One by one they began paying for their orders and preparing to leave. I reached for my bill. "No," said Manon quickly, taking my hand away from the paper. "This is my gift to you." I somewhat hesitantly thanked her. Maybe she is just showing gratitude and I've misread everything. In short order, the other 4 ladies all said goodbye and left. I said I should leave too. But Manon took my hand and held it. She smiled. My whole body tingled, yet I knew I needed to pull my hand away. She spoke in a low voice. "Kyle from Canada? What is happening to you must be very exhausting." I recoiled in shock. My hand pulled loose. "What do you mean?" I demanded in suspicion and amazement. "Does she know about my day-skipping?" Manon ran her fingers through her hair. "I know what is happening to you," she began smoothly. Even deeper surprise must have filled my expression. "Then you feel you must be the hero and put yourself in danger. Noble. But for what?" I breathed a sigh of relief. "Okay, she's just wondering about why I did what I did back at the magazine attack. That I can talk about." "Well," I started, "I suppose what I'm doing might seem strange. It's because of whom I serve that I try to help in the ways I can." It was Manon's turn to be surprised. "Do you work for someone who orders you into these situations?" I chuckled. "Not exactly. I serve Jesus Christ. He teaches us to serve God by serving others for their good. That's what I was trying to do at your office." Manon took my words with silence. But, dismissively, her alluring smile appeared a second later. She reached to place her hand on my arm, but I leaned back out of reach. Still, she continued, "How long, Kyle, will you stay in this city?" She seemed to move away to a different topic pretty fast. I thought about my answer. I knew I would still be in Paris in a couple of chronological days, facing Koulibaly. "I'll be here through Friday, I think." I furrowed my brow. "Why do you want to know?" "Because I must make a request," she answered. She let me dangle in silence for a moment, then moved her head toward mine and whispered, "Do not put yourself in any danger, my hero, for on Friday evening, if you are still available, I should like to give you a reward. You will want what I would like to give you, I think." The meaning seemed clear. I said nothing, but morally opposite instincts dueled inside me. Before I could react, Manon reached for my phone, which lay on the table. She punched in a number, and in the next moment her phone began to ring inside her purse. "There," she said as she ended the call. "My number is in your phone's memory. Call me Friday evening." With that she stood. "Wait," I stammered. "You should... Thank you for paying for my meal, but I won't..." Manon did not let me finish. "You may wish to," she informed me. Then she seemed to hesitate. Are those tears in her eyes? "You will see, one day, comfort and pleasure in the arms of someone who understands, who shares it, is not a bad thing. It helps with the choices that must be made." She straightened, and then, "Friday." She left. I sat quietly in the restaurant, sipping coffee, confused, agitated, weakened. A painful tingling in the arm woke me. I sat up. I recognized the interrogation room of the police prefecture. Back in Thursday after Montrouge, after the service station. My arm returned to life as the blood flowed back into it. It must have been in an awkward position when I used it as a pillow. I got up from the floor to sit at the table. My note still lay there. A clock on the wall read 2:17 p.m. It's the 7 a.m. hour back home. My thoughts strayed back to the event I'd just experienced with Manon. The offer of Friday evening tugged powerfully at me. At 2:20 the door to the room swung open. Jeremy entered, carrying a tray of food. He set it in front of me. "You said you were hungry," he explained when I looked at him. "I will be your waiter." I did feel hungry, but I also hesitated. Jeremy laughed. "Go ahead, it's not poisoned," he exclaimed. I picked up a fork and knife and began cutting the meat. Jeremy nodded approvingly and said, "I will return." He left the room. The door clicked shut again. When I'd almost finished, Jeremy re-entered and sat across from me. "So, monsieur, here we are. As I have told you, I have been ordered to watch you. interview you, try to understand you." He sighed. "I confess that last part is not easy." He consulted some notes. "Yesterday you were present at the scene of the Charlie Hebdo attack and recorded a video of the Kouachi getaway. Specifically, you recorded the license number of their car and brought it to the attention of a police investigator." I nodded. "Yes, that's all true." "Do you know what happened to the car the Kouachis used to escape?" I thought. "I know they had a different car when they came to the service station today," I offered, "but I don't know what happened to the black Citroën." Jeremy made a note. "Then, the Kouachis abandoned the Citroën shortly after Charlie Hebdo. We confirmed it was theirs because of your license plate recording. Inside were Molotov cocktails, a video camera, two-way radios, and, surprisingly, the identity card of one of them, Saeed Kouachi. They hijacked a grey Renault Clio after abandoning the Citroën. That Clio was the vehicle they drove when they arrived at the service station. But I am getting too far ahead." Jeremy proceeded to summarize the incident in Montrouge, my call to him from the service station, and the robbery, each time specifically pointing out my contribution to the hunt for the terrorists. Why this litany of my actions? Jeremy's expression proved unreadable. Soon Jeremy paused and leaned back in his chair. "So," he began, what would obviously be a shift in the conversation, "allow me to present the two competing theories about you. The first is that you are mentally deranged. But, while appealing in every other way, this theory does not account for how you could possibly know in advance the movements of the Kouachi brothers and Koulibaly. The second theory is that you are one of them. You flew into France on a one-way ticket because you are planning to escape with them, probably to the Middle East or North Africa. Or perhaps you are planning to die with them. But you knew where they would be because you planned these attacks with them. And you are playing this game with us in an attempt to throw us off their trail." He paused. "What do you have to say?" I swallowed and spoke. "Both of those theories are wrong, sir. All I can tell you is that I am experiencing time differently than I ever have before, differently than anyone else. Because of that, I knew from events I have already experienced where to go and what I could do to help." "And why would you want to help? You could have stayed in Canada, away from all this danger." "Because helping others is what we are supposed to do, isn't it? Even at risk to ourselves, if necessary. That's what I believe, anyway." After a silent minute, Jeremy leaned forward again. "The hour will soon turn to 3 p.m. That is when you expect to, what did you call it, skip days?" I corrected, "I call them day skips. But yes, the day skips always happen at the change of the hour. I fully expect another to happen at 3 p.m. "And what time frames will you experience next?" I still couldn't see where the questions were leading. "First, I will skip ahead to 2 p.m. tomorrow." I thought of Koulibaly. "After 1 hour, I will skip back to the start, the 3 p.m. hour last Saturday, which is 8 a.m. at home. I will go through the 3 p.m. hour of Paris time on Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. Then I will be back here." "And will you disappear into thin air while this happens and leave me alone in this room?" "No," I explained, getting worried. "My body will stay right here, and it probably won't look to you like anything has changed. Sometimes I make a startled motion when I skip from one day to the next." Jeremy smiled, a disquieting smile. "This is your assignment, Kyle Stone. Do something in one of those hours you will visit which will, right now in my present, give me a sign of your truthfulness." And with that, the police investigator reached forward and snatched my phone, which had been lying on the table. "I will keep this for the moment, just to make sure you do not contact anyone to help trick me or do anything else funny." Jeremy sat back and crossed his arms, clutching my phone in one hand. I tried to think of something I could do in the chronological past which would send a sign to Jeremy in the present. I also began to think anxiously ahead to the next hour with Koulibaly. Soon the clock on the wall read 2:58. At 2:59 I said, "It should happen any moment now." Jeremy nodded. "I'll be here waiting for you when—" I went from staring into the skeptical eye of a police investigator to staring into the suspicious eye of a terrorist. Koulibaly stood in front of me, one hand holding my phone, the other hand holding a gun at the ready. Behind me stood a group of hostages, huddled close in fear. We were all in an aisle of the hyper-caché Jewish grocery store. I had just shown Coulibaly a message on my phone saying that I thought God had wanted us to meet. What does he understand from my message? I wondered as I watched him, who seemed ominously still. Suddenly Coulibaly extended his arm and returned my phone. He looked past me and ordered, "Les portes et les fenêtres." One of the women from the group behind me, a store clerk, slowly moved past. Coulibaly walked with her to the end of the aisle, and she disappeared from my view. Soon I heard the sounds of metal shutters extending over the windows and of metal bars clanking into place over the doors. The woman, pale with fright, returned to the group. Coulibaly stooped to take a box of groceries which sat on the floor near his feet. He dumped the contents and handed the empty box to me. "Tous les téléphones cellulaires ici," he stated. He didn't want us to have our cell phones. I put my phone into the box. "Non, gardez la vôtre," countered Coulibaly. I was surprised, but quickly took my phone back. I then passed the box to those behind me and set it before Coulibaly when everyone had complied. The gunman shoved it toward the counters with his foot. Next, Coulibaly said something which I couldn't understand other than the word cameras. But the group started moving under Coulibaly's watchful eye, and I went with them. We came to the end of the aisle where the bodies lay. 2 of the hostages sobbed loudly. Coulibaly barked an order for the group to stop. He pointed at the female store clerk who had secured the windows and doors, and a man. The 2 moved toward the front of the store, where the clerk retrieved a stepladder from a corner. The man climbed and opened the dome of a security camera. I finally understood. Coulibaly had ordered them to disable the security camera. They did that to each camera around the store. Coulibaly watched these events with an amused sneer on his face. I thought I heard the sound of helicopters. The police. The gunman heard the sound as well. In an instant he flew into a rage and started a long shouted speech in French. I recognized Al-Qaeda and Yemen. And I didn't know what to do, what I could do. My plan had been to find Coulibaly. I had found him, but now what? He seemed to be ignoring me. When he had finished his rant, Coulibaly herded us toward the back of the store, where some customers had fled. We stopped just inside the stockroom on his command. He walked in and looked around, but found no one. Coulibaly went to a stairway leading to the basement. Again he summoned the female clerk. "Allez là-bas," he said. "Dites-leur de venir." He wants them to come up? The clerk went down the stair. I could hear desperation in her voice as she spoke downstairs, though the words were muffled. Silence. She came back up the stairway to report that the others had barricaded themselves in the cooler. Coulibaly considered this. Then, casually, he turned and leveled his gun toward the hostages, including me. We shrank together into a knot for security. "Dites-leur à moi qu'ils viennent, je vais commencer à tuer ces gens." I understood. If those hiding didn't come out, Coulibaly would start shooting. The clerk went down again and through tears begged people to come out. And then came a curious moment for me. 2 scenarios of potential action presented themselves in my mind. In the first scenario, I heard Manon's voice from 2 days/2 hours ago. "Do not put yourself in any danger, for on Friday evening—" I saw myself choosing to not intervene in the current situation. An extra idea suggested that with caution I could likely survive the grocery store hostage-taking and get to Friday evening. In the second scenario, I saw and heard nothing specific. It simply contained the belief that I'd been brought to this point, through the day skips and all that was happening, for a reason. This, in fact, nothing in life, was no accident. I took a breath and decided, and immediately had an idea of what I could do. I stepped forward. "Coulibaly!" When the man turned toward me, I raised my phone. "Message," I stated. Coulibaly's eyes narrowed, but he nodded. I typed this message into the translation app. "Please, no more killing. Do not add to your guilt before God." I pressed translate and offered the phone to Coulibaly. Coulibaly read the message quickly before handing the phone back. He looked angry. Moving back a step, he took his phone and typed with one thumb while keeping his gun trained on the group. A minute later, my phone beeped. Coulibaly had texted me. I pasted the French words into the translation app and read, "For your insolence, holy man, you will choose who I shoot next." I started to quiver. This is not going in the right direction. Just then there came a noise from the lower level. A man who had been in hiding slowly ascended the stairs, hands held high. He looked terrified. The store clerk followed, equally frightened. Coulibaly introduced himself to the man, said something about Al-Qaeda, and motioned for the two to join the others. Maybe he will forget about his demand about me choosing. I prayed that he would. But Coulibaly took his phone again and thumbed another message. In a minute it appeared on my phone. I understood. Who will die? My heart sank, and I almost collapsed. But a God-strengthened part of me knew I have no choice. I texted back in French, "No one must die. God will not be pleased. But if you need to kill, choose me." I stared hard at Coulibaly as the text transmitted. Coulibaly's phone received. He read. "D'accord," he said lightly, and motioned for me to stand apart from the group. I took a step or two. Coulibaly raised the gun toward my head. Hostages screamed. I stared back at the gunman. The peace that passes understanding filled me.